You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is award-winning director and producer Timothy David, and we're going to be talking about his wonderful film entitled Kangaroo Island. Welcome to the show, Timothy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jen. Nice
You're
to meet
welcome. It's nice to meet you too. So our audience knows I always like to start with this. Can you give a brief synopsis of what Kangaroo Island is all about, so people will know what we're talking about?
you. Okay. Well, Kangaroo Island is a film set in a real place, but a fictional story about Lou Wells, who is a struggling actress in Los Angeles, formerly from Kangaroo Island, and she gets a request to come back home. She doesn't really know why, and she doesn't really want to go back home. However, events unfold that force her back home, and that's where she faces a lot of, let's say, baggage, and she has to deal with that when she's there. And thematically, it's a film about how life is as ugly as it is beautiful, and what is the strength of family? What are the destructive forces of family? And how do we as human beings cope with tragedies that can either bond us or break us?
Beautiful, beautiful, and there's lots of humor in this film, uh,
Yes, well, there is
as
in life, isn't there?
yes, and as well as the drama in the film. But the actress Rebecca Breeds, the lead actress, she is, I mean, stunningly beautiful, and the camera loves her. So I don't know, is that your direction? There's
Yeah,
a lot of close-ups.
there
Uh,
are a lot of close-ups.
Rebecca.
Well, look, I like a long lens anyway, and I love close-ups because I think what you miss when you sit in a theater, um, what you miss at the table when you're with people or in the space with them is that aura. And I think when you are tight on someone, it's just you can feel that claustrophobic. You feel the aura that's going on with them very uh, very, very, very much more than you normally could. So I used it for that reason. And sometimes it was just to show, I didn't want to show anything else. So if she's just waking up, which I know there's a couple of close-ups where we're just on her. When you're sleeping, this is your world. So I would be like that. And then as she wakes up, we see the world that she's in. But yeah, I mean, there was no, I think it's a stylistic thing as opposed to an obsession with Rebecca's beauty, shall we say?
And she's absolutely beautiful. You have a great cast, a really great cast.
Yeah.
Uh, Adelaide Clemens, Erik Thomson, or Tom, is that it?
Yes,
Thompson
Erik Thomson.
and Joel Jackson and
Yeah.
it's a and Nicholas Hope, but it's a great
Yeah.
cast. And how did you? Because here we are, family, and how did
Yeah.
and although like most families, it's dysfunctional and it has its issues.
Yeah.
How did the casting process go for you? The whole process, but to get these actors and to get them all where you really feel they were family.
Yeah. Well, the casting agent was the Heesems, Lou and Angela Heesem. They gave me a list of top Australian actors. We knew our budget was small. It's a small independent film, but we also knew that we had actor bait in that the script is a beautiful piece of literature that any serious actor would love to play.
Right.
So my first pick was Rebecca, based on her work on Clarice and a couple of, but mainly that because I hadn't seen her in much else. But I just thought there's someone who, because the character Lou has gone through so much tragedy and it's made her bitter. I still wanted, and we didn't reveal why she's bitter until late in the movie. I wanted to have a cast member that was lovable at just even at a glance. And even at her worst, there's something about her essence that makes you like her and think that underneath that hard shell is a beautiful person. And she embodied that. And she did in, her Clarice portrayal and everything she's in. She kind of has that thing about her. So when we had her, we fortunately got her agent was the same agent as Adelaide Clemens, who, for those who don't know, Under the Banner of Heaven, Rectify, she just plays a lot of American. Both Rebecca and Adelaide were based in America, and they play leading women in phenomenal TV shows all over the place, and they never stop working. So she came on board because of that. I remember thinking, oh yeah, I think they could be sisters. Joel Jackson came on board, and Erik Thomson, again, they're the people we went for. Nicholas Hope wasn't quite right for the story, the role of the father, but we just love his work so much, and he loved the script, so he agreed to do a small role for us, which was truly generous of him. As far as getting them to be a family goes, we only had a couple of weeks, or even maybe a week, or of table reads, or 3 days really of table reads beforehand. So to their credit, they just did their homework, and on their own, in the background, they just worked on what they worked on. And because those 4 actors in particular are just at such a high level of their craft, they were able to connect in a way that was really surprising to watch and beautiful, because the tension that Rebecca and or the 2 sisters had was just as beautiful as the bond that they had when they were close. But they certainly didn't look the same, which kind of worried me. But at the end of the day, so many siblings don't, so it didn't matter.
There's 5 in my family, and we don't look alike at all.
There you go.
So there you go. It's exactly right. Well, they have great chemistry. All of them have great chemistry in this film. All right, so Kangaroo Island itself is breathtakingly beautiful. The water, is that the water?
Yeah,
that color, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's the color.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning.
It is stunning. It is a beautiful place, and sharks. You could see the sharks.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is an island just full of all types of animals. There was a giant seal, well, they call sea lion, that we also captured, but it didn't quite fit in the film. But yeah, the shark, when she jumps off the jetty, we had to pause filming because a great white was nearby cruising on in, and so my wife and I got into the safety boat and shoot it away, which was a bucket list thing for me, to see a great white out in the wild. So there you go. And then we filmed it, and it had a spot in the film, because we have these little nature montages that break up the scenes, and that shark is after she'd just spoken to her Los Angeles agent, who you could consider a shark. So yeah, it was nice to have that cameo from Mr. Great White. I think it's still there in that area too, by the way.
Really?
It gets filmed a lot. Yeah, I think it's a local for that jetty.
That was really a bucket list.
To see a shark in the wild, absolutely. I'd never seen one in the water before, so it was just fantastic and it came right up to the boat, and it tilts over and looks at you in the eyes. It's quite amazing. But that's what Kangaroo Island's all about. It's just got kangaroos everywhere, possums and koalas, and there are echidnas, so goannas. It's a beautiful place to experience nature, and that's sort of what inspired the script.
Yes, and you highlight that quite a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the way it was shot too. It was sort of, the Kangaroo Island is a zoo without fences, and I wanted to film the actors in a way where we didn't have marks. They were free to go where they wanted to, and our cameras would have to capture them as best they could. And if the performance was right, but the camera work wasn't, I didn't care. I didn't have time to care. Didn't have the money to care. We would just move on. But what ended up happening is it became a really authentic movie, and I think part of the reason for that is we're all cinematographers now because of our phones.
Mm-hmm.
So our audiences are so savvy to what's real and what's fake. When you're out and you're capturing friends at a party, you're trying to, or sport, you're trying to capture it as best you can. And that's what happens when real things are happening in front of you. It's never perfect. There are so many directors and storytellers putting so much time, effort, and money into a beautiful camera move. And to me, all that is telling the audience is, yes, there are crew here, there are cameras here. We are trying to show you this. And as much as I love doing that on, high budget Estee Lauder commercials with Kendall Jenner and beauty lights everywhere,
Hmm.
I just don't think that has a place in a really honest, authentic drama. And again, because it was low budget, it suited the voice of the film to attack it in that way, where you treated the actors like animals and you filmed them like you would uh, a documentary.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Now that you say that, I definitely can feel that too. The same, exactly what you're saying about that kind of filming. The house, where did you find the house? Because the house is also a character in this film.
If the house didn't exist, the film wouldn't have existed. My wife and I
Uh-huh.
were introduced to this lovely man who had the house on the beach, and his family had had it for. They had three of them. Two of them are identical, and yeah, he was introduced to me, and so we stayed there a few nights because you could rent it out, and we had a drink with him and said, "By the way, if we ever wanted to make a film here, this place is so beautiful. Would you be open to us doing that?" And he said yes, and so we started writing because it was just such a beautiful. I'd always wanted to shoot a film on Kangaroo Island. We had a property there. We have one there on the north coast, and it's just such an inspiring spiritual place. You feel like an animal on that island, but you also feel like an artist. And it's just something I really wanted to show the world for whatever reason. So that house actually inspired the story in that way.
It's beautiful, and it is. It's like a character in the story.
Yeah.
It truly is. And so, how did the script come about? Did you write it, or you were
No,
working
so
with
my
it?
wife wrote it.
Okay. So,
She was an actor I met in Toronto, but always a brilliant writer, um, and but never did anything with it. But we had investors for another film that was written in the US, and one of the investors pulled out last minute, I think during COVID. But again, we still had left over enough money for a smaller budget film, and I asked my wife to try and write something for Kangaroo Island based on that house we stayed in, the conversation we had with the owner, and she did. And when we saw the first draft, I sent it to investors and people in the industry, and they were like, "Holy crap, this is beautiful!" And it went from there. But she was inspired by it. She started thinking about that script concept when she was on Kangaroo Island, and she talks about it way better than I can, but she noticed the roadkill, and she also noticed how kangaroos are families. They always are in families, and how with so many of them dying, like life is just the blink of an eye. 1 minute you're just jumping around getting food, bang, next you're a roadkill.
mhm.
And it just made her wonder about our place on earth, and in the concept of time and what we're doing, and why we are meaning seeking animals, and do kangaroos seek meaning. And um, yeah, Kangaroo Island is one of those places that make you realize you're an animal amongst other animals. And it's one of the very few places that do that. And we were living in Manhattan at the time, so the contrast was really extreme. But
Yes.
that's where the story was born, and thematically. And so thematically, she wanted two sisters. She wanted two characters that came at life from different angles. One believed there was um, a a god or a cause or a reason for everything, a creator, and the other believed that it's all bullshit, and life is absolute chaos. It's hurtful. It's horrible. Get what you can from it, and you'll be out before you know it. So there are those two extreme views clash in this film. And what I think is beautiful about the script is they clash, and then they sort of turn around and
Mhm.
go back the other way, which you don't see. And it also allowed the film to explore themes that films these days just don't explore. Art house films have become, in my mind, so one dimensional, so utterly boring and unbearable. And this for me was a way to sort of go, we can talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
yes, it's a rich white family on a beach, but they can be good people. And we can talk about the suffering that we will all experience as human beings, not just one group of people. And this should be a movie for everybody,
Yes.
for every minority, for every majority. This is a film about how we deal with the beauty and tragedy of life simultaneously, because that's everyone's experience.
Exactly. Exactly. It's,
Hmm.
if you don't have, yeah, you don't have the night without the day, those kinds of
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
or the black and white, those kinds of themes that you're right, that pervade some of the films that are out there today. This, so there is okay, so how long did it take you to shoot this?
We had to shoot 100 scenes in 23 days.
Well, that's a lot. That is a lot. So besides that and your small budget,
Oh,
what was,
sorry, you just cut out a little bit.
okay, there you go.
I said 100 scenes in 23 days. I missed. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
that's a lot in a short period of time.
yes.
And your budget, as you said, was a small budget. Other than that, those two issues, what was the most difficult part of filming Kangaroo Island?
Um, it's a big island, so you have to jump from one location to the next. And of course, when you're shooting that many scenes in so few days, you need to be at several locations in a day. The union rules in Australia are such that you can't go past your 10 hours. So there was never going to be any overtime. But to be honest, all the problems that we encountered, I just ended up turning them into positives by approaching the film in a way where I just let it breathe and I just let it be, and I didn't try and control anything. I had to let the film, grow up and be the film that it was going to be, as opposed to the film that I necessarily could control it to be. So, yeah, it was literally a film about rolling with the punches and spinning everything negative into a positive, and just pivoting and going, well, if I treat it this way. I mean, a classic example is when Lou gets out of bed and her father's sick, and we, in the script, it's like he's had an accident in the bed. It's a horrible scene to look at visually, but it's a beautiful scene emotionally because it's the daughter caring for the father. But by seeing the daughter come out of the corridor and then just walk into that room, and instead of the camera following that room and dressing that room and lighting that room and all that kind of stuff, I just let the camera follow where she would be in the corridor. So all we're doing is staring at a wall, but we end up focusing on the photograph that's hanging on the wall where he's happy, hearing, him go through this horrible experience with his daughter in the background. So there were things like that. And also, like in the shed scene at the end, if the door's closed and they're in a dark shed and they can't see shit, then neither can the audience. I don't need to light that. I don't need to spend, 5 hours trying to get the smallest bit of light just perfect. And believe me, my crew tried to make me do that. And I'm just like, no, this thing will be. And then even in post, they're like, okay, we've brought up all this, thing so we can see what's going on. I said, the characters can't see what's going on. Why should the audience? It's
Exactly.
just stop the fakeness. This is reality. This is real. And it was interesting how that played out in the cinematic experience. It sort of delivered exactly what I'd hoped. It's an imperfectly, filmically, it's imperfect, but for the audience experience, I believe it's perfect. So I'm incredibly proud of it. Even when the odd cinephile, tries to shoot it down for those reasons, that I think it works. It's also a reflection of life being completely inconsistent with something horrible is happening, then something great happens. There's a tragedy, but then there's humor. And that inconsistency of life was very deliberately reflected in how it was shot and even colored at times, with warm flashbacks being a different tone to reality of the day, to the sound being sort of echoey as a memory, to being very straight, but so subtly that you can't really tell. It just feels different. And then, if you want to pick on the film, you'd say, well, the film's tonally inconsistent. Shame, shame, shame. And for me, it's like the film is beautifully rendered in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Proud, proud, proud. And by all means, love these films that have this incredibly slick, beautiful, cohesion from beginning to end. That's wonderful. It's certainly not what this film thematically is about. So as a director, I didn't want to do that.
It's more real.
It's 1,000% more real. I challenge anyone who criticizes this film to show me a more real
Right.
film, and
Exactly.
a film where every scene is important to the story and cannot be dropped. You cannot see a film these days, including One Battle After Another, without many scenes that could easily be removed, and it had absolutely no shape on the rest of the film experience. This is one of those scripts where that was impossible. Literally every bit of dialogue has to be there, even from them being locked in a shed in a flashback in the first 10 minutes of the film. They speak about their father locking them in a cupboard when they fought until they sorted their shit out. That comes back an hour later when the
You froze up, but hopefully, okay,
oh
there
yeah,
you froze up there. Yeah.
yeah,
When the father locked him in the shed
yeah,
and then,
yeah, and they're stuck there until they have to work themselves out. So the film is full of these little setups and knockdowns, and there's not and it's the most economical script I've ever read, where literally every scene um, escalates the following scene, but also is important to another part of the film. So you can't take away one. And we tried to, because we tried to make it shorter. It's an hour and 53 minutes. I really wanted it to be under 1.5 hours, and just couldn't do it. Tried and tried and tried.
yeah. But it comes out. I mean, it's a wonderful film. It really is, and exactly that. It feels very real, like you're very much a part of what's going on, rather than having it be slick as you're talking about. It wouldn't serve the story. It wouldn't serve the story if you had made it anything different.
No, look, it's a very emotional story. There's a lot of drama. It's 10 years of drama. So in that sense, it's the equivalent to what all of us at some point in our lives are going to go through. We're going to go through horrible stuff, betrayal, death. But what's beautiful about it is that it all happens in a short frame of life, because she ends up coming back and having to confront it. So it does blow up. So, but because there's so much drama unfolding in a short period of time, it also has to be as real and authentic as possible. Otherwise, you get into soap territory where it feels contrived.
I love and I don't want to give anything really away, but the last scene with Rebecca and Erik Thomson, who plays her father. I mean, I loved how you did
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
that conversation at the table.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, same here. I loved that.
yeah.
That was another challenge, though, because I really wanted that scene to be shot during sunset,
Mm.
and everyone's freaking out because it's like, well, that only gives us half an hour to shoot. And I go, then we shoot it in half an hour. It's not like the actors. It's like, a couple of minutes of dialogue. They can do it, and I've got two cameras, so don't light it. Just let that sunlight come through, and film it. And guess what, guys? We're going to be done in half an hour, and we don't have to get too upset. Anyway, those two were just so good,
Hmm.
that every time we did a take of that, um, it was great. And then I found that piece of music later. It was one of the first things I cut. It was just from Spotify, and I threw it under and went, "Wow, that music works really beautifully there." And and then I wanted that conversation just to turn into a really beautiful um, dinner between the two of them.
Mm.
So you had the conversation that had to had that was quite emotional, and but then when they're just joking around about his past, that's not something that the audience is invited to. That's their personal life, and that's why they're muted, and the music comes up, and we see them laughing and having a great time. But that's also what I like about the film. But it also meant that we could fit our budget, because we didn't have to have the might for this other conversation. We didn't have to go, oh, that wasn't very funny. Can we think about something else? Let's ad lib something. It was just them. They were actually cracking jokes about set experiences from the movie. That's how we got them laughing naturally at the end over when it was all when the mics were turned off.
I love how you're organic. You're an organic. It sounds like you're an organic director, and I like that.
I like it.
I like your positive attitude. There was no negatives. We're just going to make it positive, and that's the way I think in life. Not many people think that way, but I like
No, they don't. My wife doesn't, who wrote the script. She's the opposite. It's
she
funny.
the opposite puppy. That's why you get along well. You
Yeah.
have to have one or the other. I'm a
Yeah.
positive Pollyanna.
Yeah.
It's
That's
all going to work out fine. It's going to be fine. And meanwhile, the house is burning down, but whatever.
right.
So those kinds of things. So I like the way that you filmed this, and I'm sure your actors really appreciated it too, because the worst part of filmmaking for actors, I understand because I interview a lot of people,
Yeah.
is the waiting in between scenes to get the lighting set up. And as you said, it can
Yeah.
take hours to do that. And so if you were doing something quickly, I'm sure they were very happy. Like, okay, let's get this done and let's do it because they're ready to go. And
Yeah. Well, yeah, we picked lenses that looked beautiful. So there was an American DP told me to use these lenses, and I looked into them, and so did my DP, Ian McCarroll, and they make everything look beautiful.
oh,
And so does a long lens. So when you got that, I'm a huge fan of, and I've done all the Estee Lauder. I've spent 20 years doing beauty commercials with 30-second commercial taking 2 days. So, but there's nothing like just putting the camera up, seeing it through a beautiful lens and going, this needs absolutely nothing else. However, that does not stop crew and people trying to perfect it and spending hours doing that. And getting through that ego thing is tough for a director, but it was so liberating to just go, nah, we're shooting. And the actors did appreciate it. And quite often, the crew would be asking for the actor to come in and say, why do you want the actor to come in? They're in the trailer preparing for one of the saddest or most joyous experience, and they've just come off this scene, which is the opposite. Let's just give them time. Oh, I want to see how the light hits her hair. It's like, wow, really? So we're going to pull an actress who's getting herself to like an athlete to go out into the field and perform their best, and we're going to knock on the door and interrupt them and insist that they come out because the lighting is more important than their performance? Hell no. A lot of directors just don't understand that. The performance, depending on your film, but in nearly all films, you want to connect on a human level, which means the actors have to be like an athlete performing at their absolute best. So you have to give them that environment. You have to give them, the training resources and everything. And if you do that, you'll get this beautiful, realistic thing that shits on any great lighting.
Right. You are an actor's director then. And there
Not always.
yeah. So it's nice that Kangaroo Island, people really find this movie. So where can people find this movie? Because it's stunningly beautiful and it's a wonderful story and the acting is superb.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
It's New York, Angelica Theatre, Monica Film Center in Los Angeles, Angelica in Dallas, Angelica Film Center in Dallas, San Francisco, Apple Van Ness, I think it's called. And then there's Honolulu. Honolulu at Consolidated, there's two there. So that's where it starts. And see how much reach you have, Jan, and then if a lot of people go, it'll move on to other theaters.
Wonderful. Well, everybody seek it out. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Timothy.
Really. It's been great.
Yes, thank you so much. And I wish you much success with the film.
Thanks, Jan. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See ya.